Well, I'm sure that you've heard, despite documented and horrific adverse events recorded on publicly discoverable and online databases, the military will be mandating the shots being called vaccines for all personnel. Total disgrace. The Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, said, quote, "To defend this nation, we need a healthy and ready force. I strongly encourage all DoD and civilian personnel, as well as contractor personnel, to get vaccinated now, and for military service members not to wait for the mandate," end quote. Now, despite Austin being fully vaccinated and still donning multiple masks and a welder's visor, the man responsible for the world's most brave men and women added, quote, "All FDA-authorized COVID-19 vaccines are safe and highly effective. They will protect you and your family. They will protect your unit, your ship, and your coworkers, and will ensure that we remain the most lethal and ready force in the world." Jarome Bell is a retired Navy Chief Petty Officer. He's an America First conservative Republican U.S. congressional candidate, endorsed by General Flynn, by the way. Congratulations on that. He joins us now. Chief Bell, thank you for coming. We appreciate it. What's your reaction to this?
I think it's preposterous. As far as the history of the military, you can just go back to, the anthrax, mandatory, the AVIP program that myself and a lot of my brothers and sisters had to go through. And this is the same type thing. This vaccine, if you want to call it, is not approved by the FDA at all. And so I really, really, really would tell my brothers and sisters in the military to go get you an outside lawyer and stand up to this, and do not take this experimental vaccine, because it is against the law. It's against the UCMJ for them to require and mandate any vaccine that's experimental. And we found that out in 2004.
A lot of people are saying, well, the military, these people enlist, they surrender their rights, they give up their bodies, they consent to some, like, even using their bodies as experimental, resources for the military, for the government. How is this one different than any of the other rights that they have previously waived when they sign up for enlistment?
Well, it's different because it's not different. We don't have to give our rights. We don't even have to obey unlawful orders. This is an unlawful order. And the precedent has been set. Back in 2004, the U.S. District Court Judge Emmett G. Sullivan was his name. He ruled that it was illegal for the federal government to mandate anthrax vaccinations, which were not approved by the FDA. Judge Sullivan banned the Pentagon from forcing military personnel serving in Iraq, Afghanistan, Korea, and parts of Asia and Africa, where to get the anthrax shots without prior consent. The military, he stated that the military could not require the vaccine until the FDA approved it for specific use of inhaled anthrax. Now, this is the same. The FDA has not approved this experimental vaccine. And guess what? They can't approve this experimental vaccine because of 21 U.S. Code 360 BBB-3, which is authorization for medical products for use in emergencies. Now, basically what that states in short is that if there is an alternative to the vaccine that can treat this disease or treat what's going on, then actually and legally, they could not even have made or should not have made this vaccine, because there are alternative treatments like ivermectin, like HCQ, and some things that treat this COVID-19. So, and it's illegal, and I think our military personnel need to know that and stand up for their rights.
Chief Bell, there has been a lot of doctors on this program, a lot of experts, scientists, researchers, pharmaceutical people, experts weighing in on this. Recently, we've discovered something called ADE, which I believe is antibody-dependent enhancement. So what this does is, once you've been vaccinated, it has found that once you're subjected to any coronavirus, any viral infection at all, that your body overreacts, sets people up for serious adverse events and possibly death. Military personnel travel all over the world. They're exposed to all kinds of different viruses, bacterial infections, and other things that affect their bodies that we aren't exposed to here. This could be catastrophic for the military.
And you really want to think about, okay, this guy, the Secretary of Defense, he supposedly is vaccinated, but he wears the shield and the mask. I don't think he's vaccinated. I think he's scared myself. But this will harm readiness. Okay, I really think that they may be trying to set us up for a Chinese invasion. I mean, to be honest, and that's not being cynical, because if you look at all the adverse effects of this vaccine, if you look at the deaths of this vaccine, you figure if you shoot up every military personnel in the military, at least 30% are going to have adverse effects. At least 40% will be off duty. They will be not available for duty. That is going to dramatically harm our readiness to defend ourselves. So I'm thinking, why would the President of the United States, why would the Secretary of Defense mandate something that will definitely impact readiness?
Well, there's certainly a lot of speculation surrounding the motives behind people like Anthony Fauci, Bill Gates, you know, the Rothschilds, their involvement with people like Twiggy Forrest in Australia, which, by the way, is experiencing some draconian, super tyrannical lockdowns, mandates, forced vaccinations were heard. The military's on the streets there, and you wonder if that might be happening here as well. You've been recently endorsed by General Flynn. That is breaking news. You have certainly events coming up, and the polling numbers look really good for you in your congressional run for Virginia.
Right. Yeah. It was a blessing to get the endorsement of General Flynn. Wendy Rogers out in Arizona, she came in. You know, we got Tom Homan, who was the Homeland Security Director for President Trump as well, and others that I have not announced yet. But we have to fight, and we have to continue to be really to think about America first. And what's happening, Stu, is just not. It's really historical and it's biblical. And what we need, well, what makes us different right now from Australia, because you mentioned Australia, because we still have our Second Amendment right. What's happening in Australia should tell people emphatically that that's what happened. This will happen to you if you give up your Second Right Amendment. If you don't have the way to protect yourselves from a tyrannical government, which is why our founding fathers gave us the Second Amendment. It wasn't about hunting. It was about protecting ourselves from a tyrannical government like you see in Australia and these other countries. We can never give up our Second Amendment right, because we will become like Australia. Because as you see now with this draconian, this dictatorship from the Biden administration, they will put troops on the street, and they may even try to even bring in the UN to force vaccinate us. But, you know, we still have the right to protect ourselves, and I think most Americans will.
I don't think most Americans are really concerned about white trucks and blue helmets in this country. There are a lot more of us than we are of them. See, they have the money and the power, Chief Bell, but we have the numbers, and guerrilla warfare is a real thing. I'm telling you, I hope it doesn't get to that, but I'm sure that they're very concerned about it. I believe that there's 450 million guns in this country. The United States alone is responsible for, I think, 47% of the world's firearms. And you got to believe that there's at least 100 million patriots that are ready to use them to defend not only their Second Amendment, but their First and their medical freedom, and to save their children, because they're messing with our kids. And I think that is the red line, and the abuse of children with these mask mandates. Real quickly, I have a couple of minutes here. How do you react to these school mandates, these lockdowns for our kids, these quarantines and things like that as we get set to return for fall school?
Well, you know, Stu, I'm just going to go back to the days of slavery. You know, masking came from the days of slavery. Masking prevented slaves from communicating, from sharing ideas. And really, it was a control mechanism. And it's the same thing in these schools. We have these communists in these schools that want to control our kids. And right here in Virginia Beach, we have a school board meeting today where, I mean, we have over 80 people that's going to speak tonight. And that's the most I've ever seen. So there is an uprising, and people will come out and protect their kids. I think you're right. That is the red line. You know, we should not mandate. And here's the thing that people need to understand, because like our blackface governor, he's giving, you know, carte blanche basically down to the school. He's protected himself by deferring to the schools and deferring to the localities, the local localities. And basically what he said was that, you know, you have to defer to the CDC. Well, here's how the CDC protects themselves. And this is what a lot of people need to understand. The CDC only recommends masking on children. A recommendation is a suggestion. It is not mandatory. It is not absolute. And so for like our school board is trying to take that recommendation and make it into something mandatory, which is illegal. If the governor said that these school boards have to follow the CDC recommendation, then they cannot overrule the CDC recommendation. They have to adhere to or less than, but they cannot go above. The CDC only recommends, and that's what keeps the CDC from being sued. That's what keeps the governor from being sued. So they're really setting up. I think all these parents should lawyer up, take these kids to school on school day without masks if they choose to, because the recommendation still gives you the option. And so to take their kids to school and dare these administrators in these schools to send their kids home because they do not have a mask, and then lawyer up because now they're against Title X, preventing a free public school education.
And the CDC now granted a whole lot of new authority under this 2,700-page infrastructure deal that really has nothing to do with infrastructure, but it does make it okay for men to chest feed and become competitors in women's sports. Unbelievable. A lot of tyrants out there. Our blackface governor, or president, I guess, the administrator, who was uninvited to the Barack Obama birthday bash, unmasked, by the way. Just proving
totally unmasked, totally unmasked. But that was okay. But they want to mask our children and cause them, mental illness and all kinds of atrocities that they want to do to our kids and subvert them to authority, to make them indoctrinate them to just submit to authority. And we're not going to have that. And I don't want, and the parents should definitely all over this country be up in arms about that, to be honest.
Yeah. Tony Fauci hasn't commented yet on the birthday bash. He has, although, warned about the outdoor event called Sturgis and said that everybody there is doomed to death from the Delta variant. Very scary. And if you don't get hit with that, it's Lambda, and the Doomsday variant is coming your way as well. Chief Bell, Jarome Bell.
Hey, here's something on that. Here's some. Let me hit the Delta variant real quick.
Oh, yeah, I got 1 minute.
If you're in the hospital for COVID, they don't even test for the Delta variant. So that's a load of crap.
I don't know how they can test for it. There's so many things that are upside down and just absolutely don't make sense. Jarome Bell, he is endorsed by Flynn and a slew of others. Can't wait to hear who they are. He's an America First candidate running for Congress out of Virginia. Chief Bell, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me, Stu. I appreciate it.
Lloyd Austin, what a brave individual. Aren't you just relieved that a man like that is in charge of our entire military, in charge of our national defense? Unbelievable. This reminds me of a guy who stood up in front of these Nazis, these brown shirts, these mask and injection obsessed weirdos. His name is Christopher Key. He got fired from his job for standing up to a tyrannical school board, which then in turn lifted all of their mask mandates. Proof of inoculation no longer is that required in that school district. As a matter of fact, he didn't even have a kid in that school district. No skin in the game, but just sees and recognizes this as abuse. Irreversible, irreparable psychological damage, torture, really, of our children. And he stood up to them. Well, his woke boss fired him. Said that that was none of his business and fired him. I don't want my name all over the place. So Christopher Key's new job is the vaccine police. He's policing tyrants like Lloyd Austin, tyrants like these pharmaceutical companies, tyrants like these school boards, universities, all kinds of places. If you want to support this guy, I do, and I recommend that you get over to vaccine-police.com. Just give him $1, give him $10. If you have $1 million, please give it to him. If you have it to spare, please help this guy. He's got all kinds of videos. He's boots on the ground. He's down at the border. He's exposing human trafficking, child sex trafficking, all of it. Get the vaccine-police.com and support him if you can over at vaccine-police.com. The Stu Peters Show continues right now.